and welcome to another episode of the University Duel Podcast, where we talk about university life and more. And today I'm just going to allow our guest, even though she's very shy, she's like, I'm going to allow her introduce herself to us and tell us a bit about what she does.
Okay, so my name is Anietie Osagie, and I'm a co-founder of Uyai Foundation. We give back to society,
Awesome.
specifically to my state, youth in my state, in Akwa Ibom State.
Mm-hmm.
We help and educate young people on several career choices that they can make for their future and how they can make good decisions. That's basically what we do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's the name of the foundation?
Uyai Foundation.
Uyai. What does Uyai mean?
Uyai means beauty in Akwa Ibom
I
State,
love that.
in Ibibio actually. So
Okay.
that's the
That's
name.
very beautiful.
So we beautify the lives
The
of
lives
young
of
people.
said people.
Yeah.
I think that's really I love it when I meet people that are doing work like this, but I just want to pick your brain. Why is it so important? You know, a lot of organizations are very big on youth development, and on paper you can the youth is the future, whatever, but why is it so important to you to do the work that you do, especially for the youth?
Okay, so for me, when you say Akwa Ibom, there is a narrative that is being spoken that we are ourselves drivers, so it sends the wrong message. But we have people who go to school as well, and we have people who are well educated, who've done well in society. However, the choices of young people are really limited now, especially in my state, where there's the poverty level is a bit much, and you need parents to understand the impact of just sending their children to school, the impact of their children making different decisions, really. So for me, that's really the driving force for the foundation.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that, and it's very important to break stereotypes, especially not for the people like that perceive, but for the people that are being perceived. Because sometimes I think these stereotypes, you kind of just swallow it. So you're growing up as a young person in Akwa Ibom, and the stereotype is that people become drivers and cleaners. So you don't even believe that there's a world out there waiting for you, or that there's any more that you can do.
Yeah,
so thank you so much for the work that you do. Today we're going to be talking about navigating university as a fresher.
Okay.
So when I'm talking to some of the students, one of the questions that I like to ask is, you know, when you're in SS3, you're the senior. Nobody can talk to you. You people who are the egbons of the whole school. And then you go from that switch to suddenly you're back to the junior.
Fresher.
You're the fresher. You're like the GS1 of university. And it's like that transition can be very jarring and whatnot. And also just high school is very different from university.
Yeah.
The amount of freedom that you're exposed to is just a whole new world, and sometimes it's very difficult to acclimatize to the new environment.
True.
Especially without making wrong decisions, entering the wrong groups and a bunch of other things, and just like managing your freedom properly. So I'd like to know, how was that if you can like remember and would like to share, how was that transition from going from SS3 into year one?
Interesting. So for me, it was really, well, let me not say smooth, but it was smoother than normal because I went to a federal government girls' college, and say 50% of people from my class went to the same university with me. So I went to University of Calabar. So basically, it was arriving in school and having like half your classmates in your school. So we still did that, okay, let's find out who is our clique.
Yes.
And then we now started just,
Really
let's
together.
do registration. Have you done registration? Have you done this? So there was general help in terms of the community when I arrived school. Yeah, it was tough also because you can't say it's all rosy because I lived off campus initially. My mom was very like, oh no, I want you to live with a family. And then getting that transit to school.
From school and back.
and back was a bit much for me because I'd never done that. I went to a boarding house. We just walked to
your class.
Yeah.
So I hear you very much, and I just want to pick up something that you said. You went to an only girls' school.
Yeah.
So how was that socialization like from going to just seeing women, and then now you're in a school you probably have more boys. You probably have more boys around than you've probably ever seen. How was? Do you think you struggled with relating with the opposite gender?
Yeah, so you know I told you I was shy. So basically, so I was very shy in school, in university, and truly none of my children will go to or has gone to an only female school or an only sex school.
Yeah.
Because I believe that we grew up in a society that is composing of both males and females, and we should already train our children to have that background and interact with boys, interact with girls, interact with each other.
On the 6th of June, 1859, Babington Macaulay started an initiative with financial support from James Davis, Daniel Taiwo, Moses Johnson, and a few others, opening the door for the many generations in Nigeria. What are you doing for posterity? How do you want to be remembered? High School Duel, Back to Basics, starting July 5th, 2025.
So for me, it really cost me to really be shy around guys for a real long time, and to be a kind of timid and naive. So those are the two things. But getting into university and just knowing, I came from a school where we were very competitive. My secondary school, we were very competitive. And once you get around that timidity and the naivety and just know that you can beat the boy next, your classmates, you can do better, really you'll be fine.
You're good to go.
Yeah, you're good to go. But
No,
initially,
it was a little bit, yes.
Yeah, that happened.
Yes, and I think so. It's very important to talk on that because if we speak in context of the female child, you're probably, if you went to a boarding house or you were at home, or you're kind of shielded, and then when you get into school, there's this whole thing of the boys from like year 2, year 3, year 4. They are waiting for the freshers because that's fresh meat for them, and then you are thrown into this world with people that are way older than you, that are more experienced, that you probably have malicious intent towards you, and you're just like dove-eyed, you don't know what's going on. And so I would ask, like, what do you think, what advice, what guardrails would you give to, for example, a girl that's just starting out university?
Okay, so values, right? Values are the key words for me. For me, values start at home, really, right? So, and I believe that school also prepares you, depending on the type of school you go to, also prepares you for the kind of values you should also have when you go to university. So for a girl that's just going to school, really one thing we forget, or all of us forget when we get into university, is that university we are there to get an education.
Yeah.
We are there to get life education,
Yes.
get a life experience that will prepare us for the future.
Absolutely.
And that's the first thing I would tell the girl. Really, you are here 4 years or 5 years or 6 years is really to prepare you for the next world, the real life actually, because there is so much more. When you leave university, there's so many guys, so why get stuck? It's best to do. So before you come out into the real world, you might not see the value of having great grades. But when you get into the workplace or you're trying to find a job and you're looking at job advertisement that says you have a 2-1 in first class, it's always like that, 2-1 first class. Those are like you would now start hoping that when you were in year 1,
I wish I
you were
had
taking those
yes.
classes seriously.
Yes.
So that's the first thing, is that basically why the intent, the purpose of being in school is to just get an education and get a good education and get good grades. It's good to have it in your pocket, especially in Nigeria where there are no jobs. So at least scale the hurdle of when they say, did you have a 2-1? You are amongst the list before we now start saying, okay, do you qualify for the job? So that at least you can at least have an opening into the door of the employment market. The other thing I would say is that 4 years is a long time. Get a skill, really. Yeah. book work is book work, theory is theory.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but get a skill. Spend 4 years and get a good skill. Web designer, tailoring, cake making. Get a skill that will make you self-sufficient, so that when you come out of school, you really don't have to struggle too much.
To transition,
you can at least begin to do something that you are skilled at before you get that dream job that you're looking for. And you never know, when you get a skill, you never know whether that will be the pathway.
That would be the dream job.
Yeah, that would be the pathway. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, that's really great. And so I want us to touch on another thing, which is basically the freedom.
Okay.
So I also went to a high school that was a boarding house, so there were rules, and not even just rules, stuff like if I don't go to class, in fact there's no way you would not go to class, because they're chasing you from your hostel, they're chasing you to eat, they're chasing you to go for assembly, they're chasing you to go to class, they're chasing you to do your assignments and all of that. But in a university, especially even a public one, it isn't that way. So how do you just transitioning into a space where you are now responsible for yourself, and like you don't get overwhelmed and get carried away by all the freedom that you have, how would you suggest that somebody balances it well?
So boarding house, right? Like you said, it's great because it begins to teach you independence.
True.
Yeah. And what I like some secondary schools, what they do now is they do, especially the British curriculum secondary schools, they do the first 5 years. You write IGCSE, which you can say is Uyai, and then you have to do a mandatory 2 years of IB, of A levels. So during A levels, they give you, so you transition from boarding house where there are controls, a lot of controls. You transition into A level, maybe boarding house, but they reduce the controls. You can do anything you want to do. You can go out, but you're in boarding house. Just have a time limit. Yes. So they gradually relax the rules to kind of mimic what you would get in the university. So it prepares you for university. But for those that don't have that opportunity, the first thing is to realize that the first year you get into university, you might have adopting challenge in terms of you have so much free time, but there is self-regulation, there is discipline. Those are the key things that will help you, and you need to have learned that before you got into university, because if you didn't learn that,
it's probably a little
you are about to get into a wall of anything good. But if you had self-regulation, because one thing to be sure of is that what is really your goal? I think what we don't teach in schools is helping young people to understand that they have a purpose, or they should already begin to plan and have a vision at 20, at 15, of when I'm 25, I want to be able to do this. It helps put things in perspective for you in terms of when you get into university, you already know your purpose. Yes. So nobody needs to tell you to wake up and go to lectures, because you know, oh, this is my goal, is to get into this school. I want to have a first class, I want to have a second class. Even if you don't want to have a second class, but I want to get this out of university. And you begin to chase those dreams and just ensure that you have fun. We don't talk about that to our young people. So they tend to just get into the university as a fresh fish and just realize that everything goes. So in the year one, what typically happens is that everyone just feels.
Yeah, you play with it. When I see that failure,
when you see your failure that first year, your eyes will open and your parents' school fees would come back to your memory. And you will now tell yourself, okay, let me sit up. But self-discipline and self-regulation, I think that's key for when you get into university. It will help you to moderate the choices you make.
I think even beyond discipline and whatnot, it starts from a sense of awareness. And something that I hopped off, which I actually realized, was we don't teach people or children in this part of the world how to set goals, how to have a vision, how to have or to understand their purpose. We just see school as the end in itself, but that is not it. So I think one takeaway I can get from this is just people introspecting. And when you understand who you are, what you're about, what you're called here to do, it kind of puts other things in perspective. And
True.
And you just go in line with with that. You see, you are not so shy on the podcast. Yeah. In fact, at some point, you got so comfortable, you crossed your legs.
I'm not into the mood.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You see, I told you it was going to be short and sweet. All right, done. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that conversation.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for the work that you do as well. Yeah. And that is all on this episode of the University Duel Podcast. See you next time. Bye.